Australia. Not only a great landmass that served as an excellent location for a cheeky bit of colonisation, I can't remember who those bullying bastards were. It's also an icon for beautiful landscapes as well as a safe haven paradise where everything is beautiful. What the fuck? Okay, in all seriousness, we know that Australia is the land of... Nope. It is for good reason too. I know any Australian watching this is going to go, oh yeah, nah, it's not that bad. Take it from the rest of the world. It is. To be fair, I can see why we thought it was a good place for punishment. Seriously though, there is a larger amount of dangerous fauna and flora than most places in the world. Working our way into the centre, we first meet marine life such as great white sharks, who present a well-documented danger with all the attacks, along with the box jellyfish and lionfish stinging the shit out of you as you enter the country. If you manage to get past all of that onto land, you meet the challenge of countless venomous snakes and spiders, along with a large number of dangerous crocs, as well as a surprising amount of dangerous marsupials, including kangaroos that can disembowel you. That's okay, because you got it safely to the hotel, where you'll now have to check the toilet seat and your shoes every time you put them on, before checking the sun visors of any vehicle you're in. Okay, you know what? Forget going out for a drive. Why not just sit in a safe garden space that's protected from the crocs and the roos, where you might be killed by giant pine cones falling on your head? But thankfully for the residents and the likes of this channel, it's actually gotten better. The life that used to inhabit Australia was even crazier, so it's always been a freaking weird place. But why? Well, approximately 99 million years ago during the Cretaceous, Australia first broke away from the rest of Gondwana. Now, the dominant land vertebrates, the dinosaurs, had already spread worldwide, so Australia does have a notable dinosaur presence right up until the KPG event. But it was from this extinction that things started to get weird. Australia was, as it is today, isolated from the rest of the world, and whenever this happens, life sees some major heterogenization. With not a lot of life coming in or out, unique genetics become less diluted and evolution follows its own path according to the environment, separate to the rest of the world. In fact, the entire continent of Australasia is separated by a metaphorical line created by naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace, and it separates this as its own faunal region from the rest of Asia, known simply as the Wallace Line. Australia's separation happened at a very relatively early time in modern mammals' history, so whilst the somewhat more basal marsupials eventually declined heavily around the rest of the world, they seem to flourish in Australia, making up most of the mammalian population there today. But what about everything outside of mammalia? Well, if you take a look at invertebrates, Australia is actually a little more typical than you might think. A little. Venomous and/or large invertebrates have not been uncommon across the globe throughout Earth's history. They seem to thrive best in warmer environments. If we take the terrestrial arthropods, for example, Australia has plenty of endemic species, thanks to the landmass's isolation after their ancestors arrived there. But it isn't actually that special in terms of sheer numbers of oversized insects and arachnids when compared to other rainforests and equatorial habitats. The Amazon rainforest, for example, is really not somewhere I would recommend visiting to someone who's nervous about Australia. The species might be different, but they're still pretty unnerving. In fact, it's largely accepted by experts that when it comes to invertebrates, Australia being the worst place on the planet is, well, more of a meme, since it's on the upper end of, but doesn't actually fall outside of the typical range for a warm country. The same can't be quite said for reptiles though. Now, most reptiles outside of snakes aren't particularly exceptional when compared to other hot countries, but snakes here are notorious, this time for good reason. Venomous snakes account for around 15% of the world's snake population, but make up a whopping 65% of the snake population of Australia. The reason for this? Well, as the continent shifted back closer to the rest of Asia and away from the South Pole, it warmed up enough to attract more reptiles around 20 million years ago, which were able to island hop across from Asia during the episodic lowering of the sea levels during this time. The most prolific family of snakes to come across and first colonise Australia are known as the Elapidae, the almost exclusively venomous groups of snakes characterised by their permanently erect fangs, and includes taipans, coral snakes, mambas, and cobras. And it's thanks to this that you don't want to mess with Australian snakes. So aside of snakes and marsupials, Australia's reputation for being a really dangerous, weird, and venomous place is actually a little overstated. But like I said, it used to be a lot more dangerous. The fauna inhabiting Australia today have actually been around for the last 15 to 10 million years, and within that time is really when things hit their peak. Just so you bear in mind that everything that is around today was also around the extinct animals I'm about to go through. Between 2.58 million and 11,000 years ago was the Pleistocene epoch, a time during which the current Ice Age began with the most recent glacial period. What most associate as the Ice Age mammals are actually officially termed the Pleistocene megafauna. And what do you know? Australia had its own. The Australian megafauna. And it was this Australian megafauna that meant that Australia during this time had a much wider range of large animals. Monotremes, a strange and ancient group of mammals, barely mammals, include today's platypuses and echidnas. But they had a much greater diversity during this time than today, living alongside a greater range of marsupials. This period boasted Procoptodon, the biggest kangaroo to ever live that we know of, specifically being a part of the Stenarines, or short-faced kangaroos. This pugroo hopped around at a massive 6'6" and 500 pounds. And any Aussie will tell you that kangaroos are not to be messed with, even as herbivores, so this guy would have caused even more trouble. I tell you what I find the creepiest though. The relatively short tarsals and big old badonkadonk, the fairly large glutes, meant that this was more upright than other kangaroos, but also lacked enough power to hop that large body around. I don't know, is it just me that finds the thought of this thing walking around upright like a human really creepy? Other extinct marsupials here include the famous marsupial lion, scientifically known as Thylacoleo. Despite the name, this was not remotely related to any cat. This marsupial was in fact the biggest mammalian predator to ever come out of Australia, weighing up to 350 pounds. Pound for pound, Thylacoleo actually had the strongest bite force of any mammal in Earth's history, having a bite force equivalent to that of a 550 pound African lion, hinting that this thing might have been hunting prey much bigger than itself, such as the aforementioned kangaroo, as well as a few of the next animals on this list, as well as some weird-ass blade teeth, possibly giving it a ratty face. And it wasn't just the mammals either. A group of birds known as Genyornis were prevalent here, which, despite their appearance, were actually a separate group to the infamous terror birds, and have been given the nicknames of thunderbirds or demon ducks. Genyornis was one of the last of these that lived in Australia at the time. This thunderbird was a herbivore that stood at around 2 meters tall, and if the dangers of herbivorous cassowaries are anything to go by, I would most certainly not have messed with this guy. Then, of course, we come to the reptiles. Megalania is one of the more famous of the Australian megafauna, but I already have a dedicated video to this lizard, so check it out if you want to find out more. Another reptile that likely would have had some serious rivalry with Megalania is a crocodilian named Quinkana. Quinkana was a croc that was similar in size to Megalania, but surely you'd have nothing to worry about if you just stay away from the water, right?
Wrong!
Nope, because Quinkana is one of the last fully terrestrial crocs this world has seen, standing with its legs fully underneath it, being able to gallop towards you so it could ensnare you in the teeth that also set it apart. Quinkana actually had zyphodont teeth, meaning they were laterally compressed and serrated, more like the blade-like teeth of carnivorous dinosaurs rather than the conical teeth of other crocodilians. Okay, so it chases you up a tree. You're safe now, right?
Nope, wrong again!
Now you are in danger of the Wonambi. Wonambi was one of the last members of the now extinct group, the Matsoids. These were a group of primitive snakes with superficial resemblances to boas and pythons, killing their prey by constriction rather than venom. This snake would reach lengths of up to 6 meters or 20 feet, similar to many of today's constrictors. Where the similarities end, however, is also what makes this snake kind of horrifying: its head. Unlike many snakes, Wonambi did not have a hugely flexible skull, meaning it couldn't swallow large prey whole. The alternative? Well, suffering the horrific death of being constricted before having the meat stripped from your bones rather than just being swallowed whole. Fun times! But none of these are around today, despite having existed at the same time a relatively short time ago. I smell an extinction event! Well, there is one species of megafauna that I haven't mentioned yet. One that actually might have had something to do with this. Yes, humans are considered by most to be a type of megafauna, since the term technically encompasses any predator that weighs over 100 pounds, and any herbivore that weighs over 1,000 kilograms or 2,200 pounds. It's been heavily noted that the Australian megafauna went extinct around 46,000 years ago, and it just so happens that the earliest aboriginals arrived around 20,000 years before that. Many point to humans and say that we have overhunting and fierce competition to blame for this extinction, with high aridity during a peak glaciation event only exacerbating things. Others, however, feel that it's the other way around, with climatic stresses being the main culprit. Whatever the reasoning though, I think it's clear that humans had a pretty severe impact when they started their takeover of Australia, making the most dangerous animal in all of Australian history, surprise surprise, humans. It's a lot more scared of you than you are of it. Now if you want to become even more dangerous by becoming smarter,
Because knowledge is power!
then stick around because it is time to answer this video's question. So the question this week comes from Veronica Zostalo 3157. Who's asked, what is your opinion on the current efforts to bring back extinct animals such as woolly mammoths? Okay, I think it wholly depends on the nature of the extinction and the reason for bringing it back. Okay, well, let's face it, the main reason behind bringing back extinct animals is either to push the science forward or simple amusement. I'm not saying the whole reasoning behind bringing back mammoths is to bung them straight in a zoo, but they're pretty public about their attempts to stir up excitement about the prospect, and whilst it might not be for direct commercial reasons, the cynic in me is a little questionable about this. On the other hand, I do think that it is worth pushing this science forward for the pure purpose of conservation. Species that are endangered or already extinct as a result of humans' impact are owed a second chance at least living through more natural changes in the natural world, and either adapting or phasing out due to reasons that we have nothing to do with. Look, I get it. Plenty of species have gone extinct over the years due to another animal just rocking up on the scene. But I really think that the scale in which humans have done this is a danger that's just been left unchecked. And reversing this as much as possible is something that should be pushed. But when it comes to mammoths specifically, I don't think that genus should be brought back. Some have attributed human hunting to contributing to mammoths' extinction to varying degrees, but at the end of the last glacial period likely would have seen these guys out anyway, or at least forced adaptation to the point where they wouldn't really look like what we commonly associate with woolly mammoths. I hate to get all Jeff Goldblum on you. Or do I? But anyway, those are my views on the matter. Anyway, thank you so much for submitting that question, and thank you to everyone else who have watched the entire video. Be sure to drop a like and a subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you guys next time.